Hello and welcome to Paranormal Teach. This is a video that is long overdue, but I have thought for so long about how to do this in a way that is educational. Today I want to present a factual, well-documented explanation of why Ed and Lorraine Warren were not the exemplary paranormal investigators that movies and folklore have made them out to be. This is not speculation. This is based on court records, interviews, statements from authors who worked with them, testimony from witnesses, and contradictions found in the cases themselves. The goal is not to attack belief in the paranormal or them as individuals, but to address a legacy built on unreliable methods, exaggerated claims, and in some cases, documented harm. Before diving into the details, I want to address a question that people often ask me when I discuss this topic. Why talk about this now? The Warrens have passed away. Isn't this old news? The truth is that their influence continues to shape the paranormal field right now. Their methods, their conclusions, and especially their habit of labeling spirits as demonic have spread across paranormal TV, books, YouTube channels, and ghost hunting groups. Their cases are still taught, referenced, and imitated, and their work is still used to justify fear-based interpretations of normal or misunderstood activity. So this is not about criticizing the dead, it's about correcting the long-lasting impact still affecting investigators, clients, and vulnerable people today. This discussion matters now more than ever because the Warren legacy is experiencing a powerful resurgence. Between the continued success of the Conjuring franchise, the launch of the Devils on the Run tour, and the opening of the Warren Occult Museum for paid investigations, thousands of people are pouring significant amounts of money into an image built on stories that often lack corroboration. Their museum is a perfect example of this uncertainty. The objects inside were frequently obtained without independent documentation, witness confirmation, or verifiable evidence of paranormal activity. That means we truly do not know which items, if any, have legitimate unexplained phenomena attached to them, and which ones may simply be props in an elaborate revenue stream. I am not saying I don't believe in haunted objects. I collect them myself, and I investigate them day in and day out. But the inconsistencies in these stories that have been seen repeatedly really make me question what is going on in that museum as a whole. This opacity raises serious ethical questions, especially as people are now paying large sums for experiences built on their claims. This renewed popularity also impacts the entire paranormal field. The Warren-style expectation of dramatic Hollywood-level manifestations, objects flying, claw marks appearing on skin, growling demons, furniture shaking, has created a warped standard for what real evidence is supposed to look like in this field. Because of the movies and their heavily embellished case histories, many people now believe that anything short of explosive cinematic activity is meaningless. As a working investigator myself, I've never seen legitimate researchers capture the kind of sensational events depicted in the Warren stories, and neither have any of the professionals I collaborate with. That does not mean the paranormal isn't real, but it does mean that the field has been overshadowed by an unrealistic image. This distorted expectation undermines real progress in this field. Investigators are recording compelling audio, environmental changes, verifiable patterns, communication, and nuanced interactions that could actually move this field forward. But these findings are dismissed by the public because they don't resemble these blockbuster-style encounters that people have been conditioned to expect. The result is that genuine research, often cautious, methodical, and evidence-driven, is overshadowed by the Warren sensational legacy, which prioritizes shock value over measurable phenomena. The renewed commercialization of their narrative, especially this year, risks reinforcing that cycle. Fans spend thousands for tours, tickets, merchandise, and museum access, without being told that much of this mythology was built on unverified stories, contradictory testimony, and in some cases, outright fabrication. Bringing these issues forward now is not about diminishing belief in the paranormal. It's about strengthening it. It's about reclaiming a field that has been held back by dramatization and fear-based framing, and encouraging people to value real evidence, real methodology, and real inquiry over theatrics. If we want the paranormal field to be taken seriously, we have to separate documented phenomena from Hollywood fiction, no matter how profitable that fiction has become. Let's begin with the case that made them famous, Amityville. William Weber, the Lutz family's attorney, openly stated, and I quote, "We created this horror story over many bottles of wine." He later described the haunting as a collaboration built for profit, not truth. Daniel Lutz, one of the sons, said that the stories were heavily distorted and that his parents were struggling financially at the time. Independent investigators like Stephen Kaplan investigated the home afterward, reporting, and I quote, "Not a single piece of evidence supported the Warren version of events." Kaplan also documented that the Warrens threatened to sue him when he exposed inconsistencies. Yet, for decades, the Warrens insisted that the haunting was real, even when the people involved in the case admitted that it was not. The Enfield poltergeist case presents another major discrepancy. Guy Lyon Playfair, the lead investigator for the Society for Psychical Research, stated in multiple interviews, the Warrens did not contribute anything of value to the investigation. He added that Ed Warren once told him, "You could make a lot of money out of this," a comment Playfair found unethical and revealing of the Warrens' true priorities. Maurice Gross, the other primary investigator, documented that the Warrens were uninvited and stayed only briefly for a day. Yet the movie depiction transforms them into the heroes of the entire case. The real investigators contradicted nearly every single piece of the Warren story. The Snedeker case, made famous by the haunting in Connecticut, has some of the most explicit documentation of fabrication. Ray Garton, the author hired to write the book, said, and I quote, "I was getting different stories from every family member. When I went to the Warrens with this problem, Ed told me to make it up." Garton went on to say, "The Warrens were telling me the family was crazy and they couldn't keep their story straight. I was supposed to weave it into a single narrative anyway." Garton has repeated these statements for years, consistently and publicly. Neighbors also reported no paranormal activity, and later residents also reported nothing unusual. The Devil Made Me Do It case involving Arnie Johnson also diverges dramatically from the Warrens' retelling. The judge rejected the possession defense immediately. Police reports and court transcripts show that the case involved alcohol, a violent altercation, and pre-existing conflict, not demonic influence. Carl Glatzel, the brother of the boy who was supposedly possessed, said publicly, "The Warrens lied about what happened to my family." He later sued the Warrens and the book's author for creating a fictionalized story that harmed him and exploited his brother's mental health. The Smurl haunting followed the same pattern. Neighbors denied witnessing anything unusual. Investigator Paul Kurtz stated there was nothing supernatural going on in that home. Yet, the Warrens continued to promote dramatic accounts, including claims that contradicted the Smurls' own interviews. Gerald Brittle, an author who collaborated with the Warrens, even admitted that parts of the story were embellished for effect. The Annabelle case, despite its fame, contains no police reports, no medical documentation, and no verified witnesses supporting any of the dramatic events described by the Warrens. The original doll owners disputed elements of the Warrens' narrative, and even the museum warnings, such as claiming a man died after mocking the doll, have never actually been substantiated by records. I'm not going to go too far into this one because I have covered the Annabelle case in detail in other videos, and I will link those down below if you're interested in a deep dive on her case specifically. A lesser known case, but a case that I find to be one of the most sad ones, was the case of Bill Ramsey, who in the 1980s was described by Ed and Lorraine Warren as experiencing demonic lycanthropy, essentially claiming that he was possessed and exhibited wolf-like behavior under the influence of a demonic entity. The Warrens presented this story in lectures, books, and interviews, emphasizing supernatural possession, violent transformations, and the terrifying potential of demonic activity. This framing fit well with their public persona as paranormal investigators and helped sell the narrative of a real-life werewolf linked to demonic forces. However, medical and psychiatric records indicate that Ramsey had a history of trauma, including exposure to stressful events and possibly childhood abuse, which could contribute to his symptoms. Additionally, he exhibited behaviors consistent with mental health conditions, including dissociation, severe stress reactions, and possible psychotic episodes. These records suggest his wolf-like behaviors were explained by psychological distress rather than any supernatural influence. Reports indicate that Ramsey suffered from stress-related episodes that involved intense physical agitation, unusual vocalizations, and self-injurious behaviors, symptoms often misinterpreted by those outside a clinical context as something paranormal. The Warrens reportedly downplayed or entirely bypassed these psychological explanations, choosing instead to frame his entire case as evidence of possession, which created dramatic and sensational content for their books, lectures, and media appearances. This case especially illustrates a broader pattern in the Warrens' work. They frequently favor supernatural interpretation over conventional medical explanations. This approach makes stories more compelling and marketable, but also raises ethical questions as it can stigmatize individuals struggling with mental health challenges and obscure the actual causes of their behavior. Now we need to address a part of their history that was hidden for decades: Ed Warren's long-term relationship with an underage girl. Interviews with the woman, court records, and documentation uncovered by journalists all support the account. She was approximately 15 years old when Ed began a sexual relationship with her while he was 27. He moved her into the Warren home, instructing her to live in a small converted room. She stated that Ed controlled all of her schooling, transportation, and finances. She also described a violent incident where Ed physically assaulted her, and when police arrived, she was told to lie to protect the Warrens' reputation. She hid whenever visitors came. This arrangement lasted years into her adulthood. Their sexual relationship ended up lasting for 40 years. Lorraine reportedly tolerated it because confronting it threatened the financial stability of their public image. According to the woman, when she became pregnant with Ed's child, Lorraine persuaded her to have an abortion because the birth of a child would become a public scandal and could ruin the Warrens' business. These events are not rumors, they are well documented at this point. Patterns also begin to emerge when we look at who the Warrens chose to work with. They repeatedly targeted people who were grieving, financially unstable, confused, or mentally distressed. Many were deeply religious and therefore more likely to accept demonic explanations. Several authors who worked with the Warrens stated that they intentionally sought out suggestible families because it was much easier to shape the narrative. This allowed the Warrens to construct dramatic, supernatural interpretations that overshadowed mundane or psychological causes. Their methods for finding cases also reveal a consistent strategy. They would contact families after reading newspaper articles about tragedies or unexplained events. Priests often sent families to them when the church didn't have enough evidence to pursue a case officially. The Warrens would offer free investigations, but often immediately push the family for a book deal, media appearance, or collaboration with writers. Authors like Garton and Brittle confirmed that the Warrens encouraged embellishment when the real story wasn't sensational enough, and then they discouraged any interviews without them. Their ultimate goal was not documentation, it was marketability. Many people wonder how they were able to operate for so long without being held accountable. Several factors protected them. There was no oversight in the paranormal field, no ethical board, and no consistent method of investigation. Their strong religious image made criticism very socially difficult, especially at the time that they were working. Most of their career happened before the internet, meaning contradictions and disputes remained buried in local archives, and they really didn't start to come out heavily until this resurgence from the Conjuring movies. Families involved in cases were often too overwhelmed or afraid of backlash to speak publicly. But after Ed's death, Lorraine had significant influence over how their story was told in films and documentaries, ensuring that their public reputation remained intact. Another detail worth addressing is what the Warrens placed in their contracts and agreements with families, authors, and collaborators. And we are still seeing some fancy contract work with their items in their collection now, even after their house has been sold. Several individuals who worked with them have stated that the Warrens often included restrictive non-disclosure clauses designed to prevent people from publicly contradicting their versions of events. These clauses frequently prohibited families from speaking to other investigators, sharing their own accounts without approval from the Warrens, or disputing claims made in books and media projects. Authors like Gerald Brittle and Ray Garton described being legally boxed in, unable to clarify fabrications because their contracts required them to protect the Warrens' stories. In some cases, families said that they felt pressured to stay silent because violating these agreements could lead to legal action that they simply couldn't afford because, again, they often went for underprivileged families. These restrictions helped maintain a polished public image while suppressing contradictory testimony and criticism, allowing the Warrens' embellished or inaccurate versions of events to stand unchallenged for decades. And honestly, still, some people are scared to speak out against this. Despite this, their impact still reaches in today's paranormal community. Their tendency to label spirits as demonic, often without evidence, has shaped an entire generation of investigators. Many people now interpret ordinary hauntings, residual activity, or completely non-threatening spirits as inherently evil, because that is the worldview that the Warrens promoted. Their influence has created fear-based interpretations, misinformation, and unnecessary panic for many people who seek help. Discussing this now is not about disrespecting the dead. It's about addressing the ongoing effects of their work and recognizing that their methods still shape how countless people approach the paranormal today. Their legacy influences investigators, religious groups, and the general public. But by understanding the real history behind their cases, we can encourage ethical investigations, critical thinking, reduce fear-based misinformation, and support a more responsible and informed approach to the paranormal. We honor this field not by repeating falsehoods, but by pursuing accuracy, integrity, and truth, no matter how uncomfortable that truth may be. We hope this was helpful and insightful for you. Please subscribe if you are interested in haunted dolls, paranormal investigations, and more.